What's going on, everybody? And welcome back to another episode of Get Ready to Learn Chinese, buddy. Red Note is actively teaching me Mandarin. As always, I am your host, Zach Cronin, and today we're going to be talking about the Phoenix Suns. I've seen a bunch of other creators make videos on the Suns. They're a hot topic right now because they are, in my opinion, the most inconsistent team in the NBA. Heading into the season, I was firm in my belief that the Suns had a championship level team. Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker. They filled out the roster with Tyus Jones, Monty Morris, Mason Plumlee. I thought that finally the roster complemented the stars very well, definitely better than last year. And yet, at the time of this recording, by the way, I'm recording this on Tuesday. They are playing against the Hawks tonight, so the stats and the record will be out of date by the time this video goes live, but whatever. They are 19 and 19. At the onset of the year, Vegas had them winning around 48, 50 games. At this rate, they're not going to do that. There are reasons for this. I'm not naive to the fact that Kevin Durant missed 2 weeks earlier on in the season, and they went like 1-9 in those games after going 9-1 to start the season. But this has been a trend for them all year long. They can string a bunch of wins together, but then will string a bunch of losses together. They will go back and forth between a 3-game losing streak, a 3-game winning streak, a 4-game losing streak, a 3-game winning streak. They're just very inconsistent. You don't know what version of this team you're going to get. It's not because of their offense. Obviously, and unsurprisingly, a team led by Kevin Durant and Devin Booker is not going to have any issues scoring the ball. At the time of this recording, they're 10th in offensive rating. They are the 6th best team in terms of three-point shooting. They are the 9th best team in terms of field goal shooting. Overall, they're also top 10 in the NBA with 27.3 assists. They're 11th in free throws attempted and 5th in free throw percentage. This is a very good offensive team. Kevin Durant's averaging 27, Devin Booker's averaging 25. You have Bradley Beal, who recently got moved to the bench, averaging 17. As I mentioned before, the additions of Tyus Jones and Monte Morris really help just smooth out the ball movement and the facilitation, the orchestration of the half court offense. So obviously, offense is not the issue here. But since there are only two sides of the basketball court, that leads us to believe that defense is the problem. And that is most definitely the problem. Well, I'm shaking my head a lot. I got the fucking bobblehead going on. I look like Ron DeSantis. Phoenix currently is allowing about 114 points per game and 116 and a half points per 100 possessions. Those are good for 19th and 25th, respectively. You are not going to win a championship if you are the 25th most efficient defense. You're not winning a championship if you're this porous of a defense. Additionally, I have some numbers here. Opponents are shooting 69.7% inside of 3 feet and 36.2% from three, which ranks 17th and 20th, respectively. I mentioned this as well in my video on the Cavaliers, who don't have a particularly good perimeter defense. However, they're much better inside the restricted area, obviously because of Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, but they offset what they can do on the perimeter by playing very aggressively, forcing turnovers, getting steals, harassing the ball handlers. They allow an above average shooting percentage and they don't force a lot of turnovers. It is a mess for them. They're averaging 5.1 blocks, 7.7 steals, which rank 17th and 22nd. Additionally, they're only forcing their opponents into 12.8 turnovers per game, which is among the worst in the league. It is 28th. They rank 28th in turnovers forced per game. So if you are not getting stops and you're not creating points off of turnovers, your defense is basically non existent. That is the biggest issue for me when it comes to the Suns being contenders. The execution of this is just not there. They simply do not have complementary pieces on defense that are good enough to turn this team into even like mediocre on that end. Devin Booker is not an elite defender, at least not in this role that he has with the Suns. Internationally with FIBA, Team USA, it's different, but this is the NBA. Bradley Beal, never been a good defender. Tyus Jones, not a great defender. Royce O'Neal, pretty good. Kevin Durant is pretty good at times, but again, he's getting old and isn't as much of a difference maker consistently as he was when he was younger. I think the biggest issue is their lack of rim protection. Yusuf Nurkic and Mason Plumlee are just not solid interior presences. Mason Plumlee has never had that reputation, so I'm not too surprised by that. Nurkic, at least early on in his career, like I'm looking at his player page on Basketball Reference right now, had a year where he averaged 2 blocks per game with Portland, 1.4 steals, 1.4 blocks per game in his second season with Denver in just 17 minutes. This year, he's averaging 0.6 blocks per game. The Suns are not going to be able to beat any elite team if they're going to play defense like this. And I don't know if this is something that they can change at this point. How it goes is when you have an offense that is inconsistent at times, or that can be inconsistent, because as we know, teams are liable to slump. Players go cold at some point, even if you're Steph Curry, even if you're Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you will have days where your team simply cannot put points on the board. When that happens, championship level teams are able to fall back on their defense and are able to get stops and prevent games from getting out of hand. Because if you know that you can't stop teams from scoring, that puts added pressure on your offense to execute at a near flawless level, when executing flawlessly on offense it's remarkably difficult. The Suns do not have that privilege, and I don't think that they will be able to figure it out because, as I mentioned, the roster is not conducive to this. I'm even looking at Nurkic last year. 1.1 blocks, 1.1 steals. Phoenix was the 13th most efficient defense. Those issues that I highlighted earlier, they're compounded. I just fucking said that. When you go up against good teams who can force you into bad shots and force you to miss shots, you're simply not going to be able to compete. And you're going to have a losing record against not just contending teams, but even teams that are like playoff teams. Against opponents with a plus 500 record, the Suns are 10 and 15. If you look at other contenders, OKC is 21 and 5. Cleveland is 13 and 5. Boston is 16 and 8. The Knicks 12 and 12. I'll give them that. Memphis 12 and 10. Even Denver, who has underperformed expectations this season, is plus 500 against quality opponents. Phoenix should not be in this part of the standings, but they also don't struggle against inferior opponents. They're 9 and 4 against teams with losing records, which is what you would expect from a team that has this level of talent. I feel like we can just go ahead and chalk this up, add this to the lengthening list of things that I was wrong about to begin this season. I'm probably just going to stop doing predictions overall because I am not Quasimodo. Quasimodo did not predict this. The Suns are that kind of team where, yeah, I can say they're not going to contend for a title, but things can change when we get into the playoffs, if they're able to make it to the playoffs, because as it stands, they're 10th in the conference, which means that they are barely in the play-in. And if they have even a little bit of a skid, they could very well miss the playoffs entirely, because behind them are the Spurs, who are 19 and 19, and the Warriors, who are 19 and 20. So, yeah, get to the playoffs. There is this chance because of all the talent that they have, and they might draw an advantageous matchup, but you're going to face more plus 500 opponents than not. In the Western Conference alone, there are 9 teams with winning records. There are 4 with losing records, one of them being the Warriors, who are only one game under 500. If you're not able to beat good teams, you're not going to make the playoffs in the West. The conference is still very good. The NBA overall is very good. Both conferences have a handful of very, very good teams. And the West in particular has a whole bunch of these good teams, as I already mentioned. So, yeah, man, this is gonna go down as probably one of the most notable fumbles of all time. As an organization, you have Devin Booker, undeniably a fantastic player, one of the best players at his position. You're able to bring in Kevin Durant as well, who even to this day, at 36, however old he is still, as I mentioned, putting up 27 points on 51% shooting from the field. And you just fuck up so hard with roster construction. I hate to pin it on Bradley Beal, but I don't think that Bradley Beal fits. I think it's become very clear that there are more issues with integrating Bradley Beal than any anybody else. It also came at a time when you didn't necessarily need that third superstar. Right? We're seeing NBA teams trend this way. You can get a lot done with two stars and like five very good role players. That's the Oklahoma City model. That's the Boston Celtics model. The Spurs are probably going to have a future very much like this with Wemby and, Devin Vassell, Stephon Castle, Keldon Johnson. The Suns tried to build a super team and it just it just didn't work. But again, I'm holding I'm not saying they are 100% out of it, but it's probably like definitely more than 50% that they are probably not going to do anything meaningful in the playoffs. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close this video out. As always, thank you guys so very much for coming to hang out with me today. Everything I'm associated with is down in the description box below. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe, leave a like on it, drop a comment as well. It helps out tremendously with the algorithm. If you do any of those three things, you will become my new favorite person. And with that, I will see you in the next one.